stand before the Son of Man. Luke used that word, the Greek word for escape, there twice, 2 other places. Once leaving a house, once for leaving a prison. In both places, they'd been in the house, they'd been in the prison. So if you're escaping these things, you are in it first before you escape it.
Okay, well, Bob says, Richard, that you haven't given a single verse of Scripture yet which supports your view. You clearly, when you had your 10 minutes there, gave us a lot of verses of Scripture. Let's just go back.
Brilliant.
What one do you think that you can give to Bob now and to people who hold a similar view that demonstrates that pre-tribulation is what the Scriptures teach?
Well, I would go for the one in Luke 21. Jesus said, pray that
well, let's just look at that for a moment, shall we? Luke chapter 21.
Yeah.
And what verse are we looking at?
Well, that's a good one.
This is when we're talking about...
Luke 21. Pray that we be counted worthy to escape all these things.
Right.
Yep.
A pastor friend gave me this at the weekend. You
So
know.
we're talking here about the end times, the signs of the times, the end of the age. Verse 10, nation will
verse
rise
36.
against nation.
Thank you.
So it continues.
Yeah, thanks.
And then we come down
Thank
to
you.
verse 36.
Now, Jesus has been talking about all this terrible business in the tribulation.
Yep.
And Jesus says, watch therefore and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass. All the things that are going to come to pass are all the things in Luke 21. Right?
That's right.
And Jesus says, pray, in other words, get born again, get saved, so that you, not through your own worth, if you like, but take on the robes of salvation, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. As Jesus Christ comes in the clouds, and we escape from planet Earth, we will then be before the Son of Man, not on earth, but in heaven.
So you look at the same verse,
I see it
Bob, and what do you
differently.
see?
I see it differently. Previous to this, yes, Jesus has been talking about all these things coming upon the earth, but he's saying to his disciples, when you see, because we have to match Luke 21 with Mark 13 and with Matthew 24. It's the same message.
Yes, that's right.
And all the way through, he's still saying to his disciples, when you see. Why tell them you're going to see this and then say, now pray you won't see it? That doesn't make sense. And again, as I say, the word for escape there that he uses is coming out of something, as in Revelation, when this great company of people are seen, and I think it's one of the elders says to John, who are these people? And John says, sir, you know. And he said, these are the people who have come out of great tribulation. You cannot come out of something if you haven't been in it. Now, Richard quoted the children of Israel in Egypt.
Yes.
They didn't escape Egypt while the plagues were falling. They were still there. They escaped afterwards. Rahab didn't escape Jericho while the wall was falling down. She escaped afterwards.
Okay. Richard, when you gave your 10-minute talk, you sort of threw out a few tantalizing things, like you talked about the Antichrist.
Sure.
And you said you had some ideas as to who he was. Are you able to share those with us?
Please, Richard.
Well, I do have very strong views who he might well be, but I'm not going to say it on television. I might be arrested tomorrow morning, but I'll give you some pointers. I'll give people some pointers. I mean, he's going to be a world figure.
Yes.
He's probably well known now. He's a political figure. All right. He's accepted not only in his own country but in other Western countries.
Oh, Richard, you're beginning to sound like my wife.
Okay.
Is that good or bad?
He is currently active in the Middle East. He likes power. He likes money.
You are definitely speaking like my wife.
Okay. That's about as much as I
Okay,
can say without...
there's some clues there. Perhaps we're going to keep playing that over the coming weeks and saying, can you guess who the person is that Richard was talking about? And we will see. But the implication is, if the Antichrist is alive today, as you talked about, then you must believe that the rapture is going to come very soon.
I believe the rapture is going to happen literally within the next very few years, possibly as short as 2 or 3 years.
Okay. When I was reading some of my research for a program,
Yeah.
I found that the Shakers calculated it was going to happen in 1792.
Right.
William Miller predicted Christ was going to return March the 21st, 1843.
Yeah.
William Branham, 1977.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, he said 1962, then he said 1977.
Yeah.
And so it continues. Harold Camping is now saying 21st of May 2011, and Isaac Newton, according to his calculation, said it couldn't happen before 2060. So you feel very definite that as you look at the Scriptures, because one of the things that Bob was saying was not everything is yet fulfilled.
Right, Ken, it's a very good point you raised that, and I'm really on dangerous ground here, all right? However, Matthew 24, the disciples said to Jesus, said, what are going to be the signs of your coming? He said, there are wars, rumours of wars, plagues, pestilences, men's hearts will fail them for fear, and all these, they're fairly general. But he gave a very specific thing, very specific. He talked about the parable of the fig tree. He said, I give you the parable of the fig tree. When you see the fig tree blossoming and its leaves going green, you will know that my coming is near, even at the very door. This generation shall not pass before all these things be fulfilled. Now, of course, Gordon, and Bob knows as well, we're not talking about a fig tree, because in the Scriptures there's a principle of first mention. Hosea and Amos makes it perfectly clear that the fig tree is the Jewish nation. Now, AD 70, Jerusalem was destroyed, and the Jewish people went into what's called the diaspora all over the world. But in 1948, the Ben-Gurion government was set up on May the 14th, 1940. It's never happened in history before that a nation would be dispersed all over the world and come back with their own religion and their own Hebrew language. So they came, and this is the parable of the fig tree, and it's very specific. Now, it's quite true that all those other people gave these prophecies which were wrong, but they hadn't got this key thing which Jesus spoke about. He said, verily, I give you the parable of the fig tree. When you see the fig tree, when you see Israel blossoming in the desert, becoming a land again, you'll know that my coming is near, even at the very door. And he said, this generation shall not pass before all these things be fulfilled. Now, there is actually quite a debate exactly how long a generation is. Psalm 90 verse 10 says the days of man are 70 years or 80 years if you are strong. And there's a lot about 70 years. Now, I hope I'm not taking too much time here.
Okay, I'm going to come to the bottom in a moment. You'll take your time. You can finish
a little bit longer.
Totally agree.
Now, God works in sevens. You know, there are 7 days in the week, there are 7 notes in music, and there's 7 everywhere in the Scripture. In fact, Ivan Panin was nominated for Nobel Prize, proving the Bible is supernatural, just on the number 7. Anyway, God works in sevens. That's why the children of Israel were in Babylon for 70 years. Now, I'd like to just spend a bit more time on that, because Daniel was in Babylon, and he wanted to go back to Jerusalem. And he read in Jeremiah it would be 70 years. We're in a world Babylon. The whole thing's Babylon. It's a disaster of the place, really.
Okay.
But we don't want back to go to Jerusalem. We want to go to the New Jerusalem.
Right, well, Bob's smiling like a Cheshire
No,
cat. I want to come back to you on something
I'm totally in Richard's seat. I'm totally agreeing with
I want
you.
to come back to you on something completely different, Bob. I mean, Richard here is coming out and saying, look, it could happen within the next year or two that the rapture is going to take place. You were talking when you were speaking about the fact that there are still things to be fulfilled.
Well, yes.
Before Christ returns. What are you talking about?
Well, as a post-tribber, of course, I'm speaking about the appearance of this man of sin, the Antichrist, who I'm pretty sure I know who Richard is speaking about, and my wife is probably downstairs here jumping up and down, and she's on Richard's side at the moment. But this man has to be revealed. He will make an agreement with Israel.
Yes.
That will run for 7 years, and then halfway through, Richard, he lets himself be revealed. These are the things I'm saying.
You're absolutely right.
I'm not quite in the frame yet. Many people believe the first president of the EU. Now, that's a whole other program, talking about the revived Roman Empire that Daniel foresaw. and I've had the program with Alan Franklin talking about that, where you know, the EU is very probably the revived Roman Empire that Daniel saw. And out of